Hey YouTube, how's it going? Kevin Cleary with a knife video for you. Today I want to talk about something that I think all of us have probably experienced, and that I'm going to admit right from the start, and I think we all should, that it's a fairly emotional situation. All right. And what I want to talk about today is warranty and customer service. Now, the reason I say it's emotional is because imagine this scenario, and we've all been there. You've saved up, you've looked around, you've done research maybe, you've decided that you found the perfect knife for you, all right? And you finally find one for a good price, or maybe they're hard to find and you have to wait. Maybe you buy one from off the secondary market. Maybe it's something you had to look high and low for and you found one wherever. And so you pay for it, it ships to you, you're checking the tracking every day, it finally arrives and you're so excited and you open it up and there's some glaring problem. It doesn't lock up, it doesn't flip, it has such bad lock stick that you can barely even use it. The blade is extremely dull. The grind is just absolutely horrendous and so uneven that it looks like this, okay? Whatever the case may be. And you're like, now this knife that I've waited for, that I saved for, that I've thought about, that I've, been watching YouTube videos about, now I'm gonna have to send it back. It's gonna be another month, 2 months, 3 months before I ever see it again. You're so upset. So you send this nasty email off to the company and they say, I'm really sorry, sir, So that's why I say this is an emotional situation. There's disappointment and frustration that comes with having to deal with some company's customer service or warranty department. All right, so what can we do and how should we approach this situation? Well, I can tell you that I've been on both sides of this coin. I've worked in sales, I've worked in the service industry, I've been the manager of a restaurant, so I had to come out, and I guess it's the floor manager, so I wasn't managing the whole thing, but I've been the floor manager of a restaurant where you had to deal with difficult customers, and I feel like that's the only reason manager was in my title in that case. Anyway, I've had to be on both sides of this equation, and so I feel like there are some things that I've learned along the way. And here's where I'd like to hear from you. I'm sure all of you watching have some great stories, either companies that went above and beyond the call of duty and just did a fantastic job, or companies that totally blew it and you will never do business with them again. Now, here's what I expect will happen. We'll probably get some comments where one person had a great experience and some people had a terrible experience, but with the same company, okay? And we'll address that as one of our talking points in my list here. So what can we do? Let's get this started by saying we need to have realistic expectations, okay? A company like Spyderco has a number of knives that are out there, lots of different models, lots of knives sold. They also have a lot of fans, okay? And that makes it difficult when you sort of believe that Spyderco makes the best possible knives in the world, that no one could ever beat them, and then you have a problem with the Spyderco. Not only is it upsetting because it challenges your fanboy mentality of Spyderco, but it also means that you now have to deal with this company on a one-on-one basis and see if all of the hype that you've built up in your mind is true, and it may not be, okay? So have realistic expectations. Companies, the reality are they have to deal with a lot of people, and a lot of those people are difficult. Not all of them are as honest as you are or I am, and so they have to have policies in place that keep them from, getting taken advantage of. You have to deal with people who have buyer's remorse. They've saved up and now they spent $200 or $300, or maybe they didn't save up. Maybe they put a $500 knife on their credit card and now they realize they can't afford it and they want their money back and they don't know how to get their money back because they have no reason. So they call customer service and say something's wrong with the knife and I need to repair. I need to send it back and I want a full refund. And that company says, we don't give refunds. We'll replace the knife. We'll do whatever we have to do. But the real issue is they couldn't afford it in the first place. So I'm telling you, companies have to have systems and processes in place to protect them from people who are less than honest. You may have broken your zero tolerance knife just cutting on a piece of wood and you got it jammed in there and you kind of twisted it wrong and it broke. But someone else broke theirs, trying to pry a tire off the rim and should never have been doing that, and now they're sending their knife to the same warranty place that you are, okay? So keep in mind that they've got to have things in place to protect them from that. So be realistic, all right? Further, part of being realistic is not expecting like punitive damages, okay? So I bought this knife and now I'm really upset that it doesn't work exactly the way I want. So I'm gonna write a letter to ZT and say, hey, I want, 3 new knives to cover the one that I broke. I want you to send me a new knife, plus I want gas money for driving this one to the gas station or to the post office, I'm sorry. Plus I want, we feel like we gotta punish them for making a knife that's less than perfect. Well, the reality is if you make 5,000 of anything, one of them is gonna be no good, okay? And you just happen to get the one. Now, yes, it matters how a company deals with that, and we ought to be we ought to have expectations of that, but what I'm saying here is make sure those expectations are realistic, okay, number one. Number two, be honest and do the right thing, okay? If you broke your knife doing something stupid, you need to say, look, I broke my knife, I wasn't being smart, please help me, okay? And a lot of companies will really appreciate that. Now, some of them already have policies in place for that. A lot of companies have free pocket clip replacement because they know people catch their pocket clips on stuff and bend them to pieces, okay? Certain companies have blade replacement procedures where, hey, if you break your blade, don't worry, send us 25 bucks, we'll send you a new one, all right? Keep in mind that a lot of companies already have things in place, but you need to be honest and you need to tell them if you're not the original purchaser, if you were doing something you shouldn't have been doing, if you don't live in the country you're supposed to, that they cover, whatever situation they may have, you need to be honest with them and just tell them what the deal really is. All right. By the way, if that happens and it doesn't go well because you were honest, at least you were honest. You can still sleep at night even if, hey, you had to take your lumps. All right. So, finally, what actual things do I expect? Well, I expect communication. I expect to be told, hey, yeah, this is our time frame. This is what's happening. This is when we're going to try to get your knife back to you. Those kinds of things are helpful. I expect to be treated like a human being, okay? So that when I contact the service department, and I know they would probably have to deal with a lot of people who know nothing about knives. But if you do know about knives, it'd be nice to have a little bit of respect, okay? I kind of know something about what I'm talking about here, so don't treat me like the average person who has no idea and can't diagnose the problem at all for themselves, all right? Sure, I could be wrong, but if I say, hey, don't do this because I think this is the problem, at least give me the time of day and check it out, all right? I expect reasonably prompt service. Now, you got to be realistic. You figure if it takes a week to a week and a half to get to wherever you've sent your knife, then it takes them a week, 2 weeks to get to it. Maybe it takes them a few days to fix it if it's a difficult fix. Maybe if they just have to throw it away and replace it, then it's different. Finally, it's going to be another week, week and a half before it gets back to you. So minimum, you're talking about a month for most things to have on the turnaround time. If they have a lot of repairs to do and if they have a policy about repairs, then it could be much longer than that, okay? So, you gotta be realistic, again, from above, but I do expect somewhat prompt service. If it's been 6 months and I haven't heard anything from them and I haven't seen my knife and nothing is going on, then yeah, that's not cool, and I'm gonna probably call them and say, what's the story, all right? Finally, I don't expect to be out of pocket for this whole process. One of the things that bugs me a little bit is, for example, Spyderco, and I still love Spyderco, I still buy Spydercos, I still use Spydercos, but if you send a knife to them for warranty, they want you to send $5 for return shipping. Now, even though that's not going to cover most people's total return shipping, it sucks, because why should I have to pay to get my knife back that should have been good in the first place? I shouldn't be going through any of this except for you kind of messed up this knife, all right? And now I'm stuck. And for me, it's even a bigger thing, because from Canada, for me to send them $5, that means I've got to go get a certified check, which costs me money. So I buy $5, I have to buy the check for $5 American, and it costs me $4. So now I'm out, about $10 or $11 Canadian by the time you deal with the exchange. And and that's for a knife that was supposed to be good already. It should have been in the right situation. The other thing that I've got to complain about from Spyderco is their policy about not sending anything out. You know, if you need screws, if you need washers, something like that, forget it. They're not going to send it to you. That's just their policy. You're going to have to send your knife to them, which, yeah, that kind of sucks. And I've had knives. My Manix 2, I wanted replacement washers for it. They're like, nope, we won't do it. You can send it to us. And in my mind, I'm going, yeah, but then I'm out my knife for a month and a half. And then who knows if the problem's still going to be fixed. So anyway, I don't like to be out of pocket. And I like companies that are helpful. Now, let's talk about who has done a really good job. Again, Spyderco comes up. I sent them my Spyderco Stretch one time. It had issues with up and down movement. Now, it wasn't actual blade play. The lock was solid, but what was happening is the metal liners were moving a little bit inside the FRN scales. Okay, so what they said to me was, look, we're going to replace the knife. We're sending you a new one that doesn't have any up and down play, but the problem you're having is really within factory tolerances. So it was good of them that even though technically they didn't have to, they still sent me a knife back. Now, on the other hand, there should really, at the price point that a Spyderco Stretch is, there shouldn't be any blade play anyway, and your factory tolerances should be 0 at that point for that particular problem. Another good company, this is more by reputation, is Essie. Essie has one of the best warranties out there. Now, granted, there's less going on with a fixed blade knife than, let's say, something like this or something like this. You know, there's a lot more to go wrong on this than there is with this, but it's still pretty cool that Essie, literally, if your knife breaks for almost any reason, they're gonna fix it. And that is really impressive, okay? Now, probably that tells me, number one, they don't have a lot coming back. Number two, they believe in their product pretty strongly. So that's not only comforting from the standpoint if it ever breaks, but even if you're just buying one, to know that a company believes that strongly in their blade is pretty confidence inspiring. Now, Kershaw and Zero Tolerance, again, have excellent reputations for customer service, and that has been my experience. There may be some of you out there that haven't had that experience, and that's going to be true of almost any company. But you guys know the story of my 801. It was modified. It was secondhand. You know, I bought it used. I sent them an email. I said, look, you know, I'm not the original owner. The knife has been modified, but some hardware would really be nice. And they just sent it out to me. They're like, sure, here you go. Very, very good. By the way, I will say, Browning did the same thing. I had a knife that the screws stripped immediately. As soon as I tried to adjust it, every screw stripped. Sent them an email. They sent me all new screws, no questions asked, no issue. So that was really good. SOG, I've sent a couple things back to SOG before, and they don't charge you anything. They send it back as promptly as they can. Now, it does take a while, but that's partially because the size of the company. SOG is a pretty big, pretty well-known company. They're going to have a lot of knives coming in for repair, and so I understand why it would maybe take a little longer than some other companies, okay? Cold Steel, another good example. I don't think I have a Cold Steel here. Too bad. But I've heard nothing but good things about Cold Steel. Now, I do want to add one little extra bit of discussion here, and that is in regards to mid-tech knives. That is, you know, knives that you're buying from the maker. The maker's hands are literally touching them, and this would also apply to customs. You do hear some horror stories about mid-tech knives. Certain people are supposedly very difficult to deal with, okay? And there's a number of things to consider with that. Number one, some people who are really smart, you know, someone may be a great engineer or a great artist or whatever, but they're a jerk when it comes to interpersonal relationships. So you've got to decide whether you're okay with that. You know, if you watch Medford Knife and Tool videos and you think Greg Medford is a jerk, sure. You know, I love how he always says, well, I said I didn't want to be a dick. Normally that is what someone says right before they're going to do that, okay? It's where they say, look, I'm not saying this to be offensive. Well, that means something offensive is just about to come out of their mouth, right? So maybe you don't like Greg Medford as a person, but you say, hey, the guy makes good knives and I like good knives, so I'm willing to deal with that, okay? And there are a lot of companies you could say that about, okay? A lot of people don't like, all of a sudden his name is evading me, even though it's a really common name, from the guy from Cold Steel. You guys can fill it in the comments below. But lots of people don't like him, but they say, hey, he makes a good knife and I like good knives. Same Chris Reeve, Andrew DeVilliers, Will Moon, lots of guys that are out there. They have a reputation for maybe not having the best interpersonal skills, okay? But they make a good knife, and so you've got to kind of decide. Now, the other thing is, keep in mind that these people are artists, they're craftsmen, and a lot of craftsmen are heavily emotionally invested in their product, and you're going to now tell them that, hey, this one sucks. Well, they may be upset over that. You've got to remember that they're going to be emotional too. It's not like dealing with a company where they know they make 1,000 of these things and some of them are going to be messed up. You're dealing with an individual who personally put this thing together and telling them your work wasn't what it should be, okay? So I think it's reasonable to expect a bit of an emotional interaction from them as well. So when it comes to customs and mid-techs, it's a different thing altogether. And we ought to be more, I think we would do better to give them more feedback and say, hey, that wasn't cool. Maybe you could try a different approach next time. Or when they do really well, and there are a lot of guys out there that equally have a reputation for being awesome and super friendly guys, again, acknowledge that. Say, hey, you did a great job here, okay? We could go on and on with this particular issue. Once you open it up to mid-techs and you're dealing with people, it gets more convoluted, okay? So there you go. Overall, most of the companies that I've had to deal with have done pretty good. I don't have any major horror stories to tell yet. I'm sure somewhere down the road I will have one or two that I can share with you. Number two, keep in mind that no one's perfect, okay? I'm on Blade forums, and I can tell you that if you mess up on Blade forums, you'll be crucified. And it's really a little unfair because everyone can have an off day. Everyone can mess something up, and it can happen, okay? So try to be fair with people. Try to give them the benefit of the doubt, or don't deal with them at all. Okay, if you kind of go into a situation expecting issues, you may have issues and you're not going to handle it as well. So then maybe don't deal with that company if you think that might be a problem for you. All right, there you go, guys. I'd love to hear your stories down below. Go ahead and share great stories, horror stories, and even if you want to make recommendations. The internet is a free world, and that's what's fun about being able to talk about customer service and warranty in this venue. There's nobody from a manufacturer kind of looking over our shoulders saying, don't say that or do say this or whatever. So let's have some fun in the comments and share some really good stories as well. Hope you liked the video, and we'll talk to you soon.